You know, usually when we talk about getting a medical diagnosis, there's this like fundamental expectation of precision.
Right. Like you want exact answers.
Exactly. You think of it kind of like engineering. Say you fall off a ladder, right?
Yeah.
You break your arm. So you go to the hospital, the x-ray machine hums, it produces that image with the, the jagged white line, and the doctor just points to it and says, there it is. That's the fracture.
Yeah, it's undeniable.
Right. And it's comforting in a weird way because
Yeah.
the problem is entirely visible. We just, as humans, we like things to be categorized, eliminated, and fixed.
Absolutely. We want to see the problem.
But then you step into the world of modern enterprise technology.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Specifically, I mean, the world of artificial intelligence integration within these massive, massive companies.
Right.
And suddenly it feels like that x-ray machine is just fundamentally broken. Like you are staring at a diagnostic landscape that is entirely murky.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters. And what makes it so dangerous for leaders trying to navigate this space is that the visible symptoms are incredibly deceptive.
How do you mean?
Well, you think you're looking at the fracture, right?
Yeah.
But you're actually just looking at a shadow.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to put it.
You're treating the wrong thing entirely.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking on a massive, largely hidden crisis that is playing out right now across the global business world.
It really is everywhere.
It is. And if you follow tech news at all, you know that companies are pouring billions
Absolute billion.
into artificial intelligence, generative AI, predictive AI, agentic workflows. I mean, you name it. It is the gold rush of our era.
Without a doubt.
But the quiet reality, the thing that nobody really wants to put in their shareholder letters, is that the vast majority of these projects are failing.
Or, at best, they're yielding these tiny, incremental...
Just garbage results.
Yeah, frankly, garbage results, considering the amount of capital being deployed.
Exactly. And so our mission today is to figure out why. Because the spoiler alert here, the thing that completely changes how you view this entire industry is that the problem isn't the AI models themselves.
No, not at all.
The problem is that the biggest companies in the world are attempting to bolt the future directly onto the past.
Which turns out to be a remarkably expensive architectural mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, we're witnessing organizations attempting to fuse dynamic real-time intelligence onto static historical ledgers.
Right?
And then they act completely surprised when the system just collapses under its own weight.
Right. It's wild. So to really get underneath this today, we have a fascinating stack of sources to pull from.
You really do.
First, we're looking at a Workday report that bluntly outlines why legacy ERP.
That's enterprise resource planning.
Right, why those systems are structurally broken for today's needs. We also have a Gartner survey via DC Velocity looking at the extreme friction that supply chain organizations are facing when they try to actually scale AI.
That one is really eye-opening.
It is. And then weaving all of this together is this strategic manifesto titled The Quiet Architect.
Oh, I love this piece.
It's incredible, right?
Wow.
It's a brilliant, almost philosophical blueprint for building modern systems.
Yeah.
And it forces us to look at this not just as like a software problem, but as an architectural and deeply psychological issue within corporate structures.
What's fascinating here is that the manifesto introduces a set of foundational concepts.
The 6 founder principles, right?
Exactly, the 6 founder principles. And they explain why intelligent people make seemingly irrational technology decisions.
Yes.
It moves the entire conversation away from just, hey, what software should we buy, to what structural realities are we completely ignoring?
Okay, let's unpack this. And I think we should start with the people who are currently catching all the blame.
Always a good place to start.
Because before we talk about code or relational databases or edge computing, we really need to look at the human element.
The scapegoats.
Right. The overwhelmed chief information officer or the chief supply chain officer.
Yeah.
I want to pull a specific data point from that Gartner survey because it reveals that 56% of chief supply chain officers identify their legacy systems as their primary roadblock to scaling AI.
56%.
More than half. They're explicitly pointing at the old foundation and saying, this is why we can't move.
Well, let's just linger on what that actually looks like on a random Tuesday morning for a CIO or a supply chain exec.
Yeah, paint that picture.
Okay, so the pressure from the board of directors is just immense.
I can imagine.
Every single stakeholder, every investor call, they're demanding a comprehensive AI strategy.
Right. Where's our AI?
Exactly. But the CIO knows what's actually lurking beneath the floorboards of their own company.
Yeah.
They are living inside a daily nightmare that we casually refer to as technical debt.
Technical debt. I'm so glad you brought up that term because it gets thrown around constantly in tech blogs, almost like a buzzword.
Oh, totally.
But I feel like we lose the actual mechanical reality of what it means.
We do.
The Workday report touches on this, describing how, decades ago, these legacy systems were designed for absolute stability.
Right.
But obviously businesses evolve. So can you walk me through mechanically how a company accumulates this debt to the point that it just paralyzes them?
Sure. So think about the core ERP system that a massive manufacturing company might have installed back in, say, 1998.
Okay, 1998 Y2K prep era.
Exactly. At its core, it was designed to be the meticulous, slow-moving accountant of the business.
Right.
It just recorded what happened. But a few years later, the business acquires a new company, right?
Makes sense.
Or they need a specific type of inventory tracking that the original software just didn't have.
Okay.
Now, because the original ERP was a monolithic block of code, it couldn't adapt natively.
It was rigid.
Right. So the IT department had to write custom code to force the system to do something it wasn't designed to do.
Okay, like a workaround.
Exactly. They essentially bolted a sidecar onto a motorcycle.
Okay, a sidecar. That makes sense for like 1 or 2 changes.
Yeah. Right. But fast forward 25 years.
Oh, no.
Yeah. You don't have one sidecar, you have thousands of custom scripts.
That's piled on.
Thousands of hard-coded workarounds, third-party plugins, localized patches. Every time a new CIO comes in, they add their own layer of customized architecture.
Wow.
So the core system is now completely entangled in this web of fragile dependencies.
That's House of Cards.
Exactly.
Wow.
This isn't just messy code. This is a high-interest loan on the company's operational balance sheet.
Because you have to maintain all of it.
Because now you face what the industry calls upgrade paralysis.
Upgrade paralysis. See, when I was reading about this, it genuinely gave me a knot in my stomach.
It's terrifying.
Because we aren't talking about, like, ignoring the notification to update the OS on your laptop.
No, you can't just hit remind me tomorrow.
Right. The Workday piece explains it because the core system is so heavily wrapped in custom code, mandatory upgrades, like vital things for security patches, compliance, or just basic modern innovation, they become massive existential risks.
They absolutely do. Look, in a modern cloud-native environment, you push an update and the system just adapts.
Seamlessly.
But in a legacy environment, you cannot just click update. If you update the core monolithic software, you instantly break the 25 years of custom code wrapped around it.
Oh my God.
The payroll might stop. The shipping labels might literally print blank.
So you're hostage to it.
Totally. So to actually do an upgrade, you have to hire an army of external consultants.
Right.
Spend 18 months mapping every single piece of custom code, apply the update in a sandbox environment, and manually rewrite all the broken connections.
18 months.
Yeah.
Which totally explains why so many organizations just opt for upgrade avoidance.
It's easier to just do nothing.
They look at the sheer cost and the risk of an 18-month, multi-million-dollar untangling process, and they decide to just leave critical security gaps open.
Exactly.
Because the fear of breaking the revenue-generating system today is somehow greater than the fear of a hypothetical security breach tomorrow.
Yeah, and alongside that paralysis, you have brittle integrations.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, in these legacy environments, when two systems need to talk to each other, say, your warehouse management system needs to talk to your human resources system,
Yeah.
the connection is usually a custom-coded bridge.
Right.
If either system updates even slightly, the bridge collapses.
It's brittle.
Exactly. So you have a CIO who is essentially a full-time firefighter. Their entire operational bandwidth is consumed by just keeping this fragile, burning building from completely collapsing.
Just putting out fires all day.
While the CEO is standing outside yelling, "Why haven't you installed the new AI predictive analytics dashboard yet?"
That dynamic right there is exactly what we need to highlight. The expectation from the top simply does not match the structural reality on the ground.
There's a total disconnect.
I keep trying to visualize this. It's like buying a state-of-the-art Formula One steering wheel, the kind with the digital telemetry readouts and the mapping buttons.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to plug it into the dashboard of a 1998 Honda Civic.
That is exactly it.
You can press the AI optimization button all day long, but the car still has a physical throttle cable.
Right.
The engine still runs on mechanics from 30 years ago. The interface might look like the future, but the mechanics are totally anchored in the past.
That is a very accurate mechanical mapping of the problem.
Yeah.
And it brings us directly to a fascinating concept from the Quiet Architect's Manifesto regarding how organizations handle this disconnect.
Right, the first principle.
Yes, Founder Principle 1. The manifesto talks about prioritizing truth over respectability.
I highlighted that exact section. Let's dig into that, because truth over respectability feels like a psychological diagnosis of the boardroom.
It absolutely is.
Right.
I mean, think about the socially acceptable narrative, the respectable thing to say in an earnings call or a board meeting or a press release.
Right. We are investing in AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are aggressively investing in artificial intelligence to drive digital transformation.
Sounds great.
That statement signals to the market that you're forward-thinking. It gets you a bump in stock price. It gets you good PR.
Sure.
But the uncomfortable truth, the reality that isn't legible on the surface, is that bolting AI onto that 1998 Honda Civic foundation doesn't transform anything.
Right.
It merely locks in your existing inefficiencies at an exponentially higher compute cost.
Hold on. Wait. I want to underline that. Locking in existing inefficiencies at a higher compute cost.
Yeah.
That is a brutal assessment. What does that actually mean in practice? Like, how do you pay more to be inefficient?
Because the pressure to demonstrate quick results forces technology leaders to settle.
Okay.
We see this heavily in the Gartner analysis. Leaders settle for using AI as a tool for minor incremental improvements to legacy workflows.
Okay.
They use it to, summarize emails or to make a slightly prettier dashboard of historical data.
Huh.
AI becomes a retrospective feature.
Yeah.
But you are paying the massive cloud computing costs required to run these large language models just to slightly accelerate a flawed process.
You're speeding up the wrong thing.
Exactly. The truth is, the legacy architecture makes the organization structurally obsolete for the speed required today. But the pressure of respectability demands they pretend they are innovating.
So the symptom we see in the market is these failed or just really underwhelming AI pilots.
Right.
And the respectable excuse is usually something like, well, the AI technology just isn't mature enough yet for our really complex business.
When it's actually their system.
Exactly. The truth is that the underlying architecture is starving the AI.
Yes.
Which brings us to the core of the issue. We've mapped out the CIO's nightmare, but now we really need to ask, what is structurally, mechanically causing this starvation?
Right. Where is the blockage?
We need to locate the intelligence vacuum.
We have to move from the visible symptom to the hidden root cause. And to do that, the manifesto directs us to Founder Principle 2. Analyze control points.
Control points.
Yes. Where is the choke point in the flow of information? Who currently owns it? And what underlying layer actually dictates the outcomes of the business?
From reading the Workday report, the exact control point holding back enterprise agility seems to be the rigid relational database schema of the legacy ERP itself.
That's the culprit.
But I want to pause here, because relational database schema is exactly the kind of dense jargon that causes people's eyes to just glaze over in meetings.
Fair point.
So pretend I'm a completely non-technical executive.
Yeah.
What is mechanically happening inside that database that is so toxic to modern AI?
Let's break it down to its most basic physical components. A legacy relational database is essentially a massive, highly rigid set of filing cabinets.
Okay, filing cabinets.
And it relies on something called linear batch processing.
What does that mean?
Well, when a transaction happens out in the world, let's say a customer buys a product or a supplier sends an invoice, the legacy system's primary job is to record that history for the accountants.
Right, for the ledger.
But memory and storage were incredibly expensive in the 1980s and 1990s when these architectures were designed.
Oh, true.
So to record data efficiently, the system had to strip away all the context. It had to strip away the why behind the what.
It didn't have room for it.
Exactly. It takes a complex, messy, real-world event and aggressively reduces it to a summarized number, maybe a few static columns, and places it in the general ledger.
So it's essentially an aggressive filter.
Yes.
If a piece of data doesn't fit neatly into a predefined column, it just gets discarded.
Discarded completely. The system only cares about the financial outcome of the transaction, not the operational reality surrounding it.
Wow.
And this creates massive data fragmentation.
The Workday article highlights this fragmentation beautifully. It explains how this traditional linear batch processing causes the total loss of operational context.
Right.
And if a modern business leader suddenly realizes, hey, they need that context back to make a strategic decision.
Good luck.
Yeah, they have to launch a massive internal project to copy the data from the general ledger, pull data from the subledgers, export data from the CRM, and dump it all into a massive data warehouse just to try and stitch the picture back together.
It's exhausting just talking about it.
Yeah.
Let's apply this to specific real-world examples from the sources because it makes the cost of this fragmentation painfully clear.
Yeah, let's do that.
Take a massive healthcare provider.
Okay.
The hospital leadership is looking at their financial dashboard, which is fed by the legacy ERP, and they see that operational costs are rising rapidly on a specific wing or reimbursements are declining.
But because of how the database stripped the context, the system hides the links to the actual causes.
Right. The dashboard just shows a red arrow pointing down.
That's it.
That's it. The leaders can't see the connection between those rising costs and a sudden workforce shortage on the third floor.
Wow.
They can't correlate it to a localized shift in patient volume due to a flu outbreak in one specific zip code. The data is entirely siloed.
So it's blind.
Exactly. The AI model they just bought is looking at the financial ledger, but it can't see the operational board. Therefore, it cannot tell the hospital administration how to fix the margin.
Right.
It can only tell them what they already know. The margin is bad.
It reduces a multi-million-dollar artificial intelligence system into a very expensive calculator.
Precisely.
The sources also mention professional services firms, like an architecture firm or a massive consulting agency.
Similar dynamic. The finance team sees margins dropping on a specific, massive client project.
Okay.
But the general ledger only shows the financial drop. It does not tie automatically and in real time to staffing levels, billable utilization rates, or subtle scope creep in the client deliverables.
So they have no idea why it's dropping.
Without that unified real-time context, the management team can't tell if the problem is that they overstaffed the project or if they put the wrong senior talent on a junior-level task.
And the third example was banking and financial services, right?
Yes.
A drop in a commercial lending portfolio's profitability shows up in the quarterly books. But the siloed views obscure the connections.
Completely.
Was it related to relationship manager utilization? Was there a sudden microscopic change in regional customer behavior?
We don't know.
Right? Were there emerging macroeconomic risks that the relationship manager saw but couldn't log into the rigid database? It just makes prevention impossible.
Exactly.
If you feed an AI fragmented, dirty, historical data that has been completely stripped of the why, you get absolutely nothing predictive out of it.
You are forcing a dynamic, multi-agent AI system, a system designed to parse vast amounts of unstructured relational data to find hidden patterns. You're forcing it to interface with a ledger designed 30 years ago to just do basic arithmetic.
Okay, I hear you. But let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Court.
Let me push back on this structural doom and gloom, because every single Fortune 500 company in the world operates on data warehouses.
They do.
They use Snowflake or AWS or Google Cloud. They have massive teams dedicated to exporting this data into Tableau dashboards and sophisticated Excel models. Doesn't that bridge the gap?
You do think so?
Doesn't the data warehouse solve the fragmentation problem?
That is the illusion of control. The Workday piece specifically calls this out, referring to it as the spreadsheet shadow IT environment.
Spreadsheet shadow IT.
Yes. It is a massive, incredibly expensive trap. Let's walk through the life cycle of that data.
Okay.
By the time information is extracted from all those fragmented legacy silos, transformed so it can fit together, loaded into a data warehouse, and then exported into the spreadsheets that middle management actually uses to make decisions. What do you actually have?
You have a snapshot of the past.
You have a point-in-time copy. It is stale before the analyst even opens the file on the desktop.
Oh, wow. So you have highly paid employees, data scientists, and financial analysts spending, what, 80% of their valuable hours just on data reconciliation and cleanup?
Minimum 80%, yes.
They are essentially acting as human glue, trying to stitch together a picture of what happened last week instead of doing actual strategic analysis of what is happening right now.
Precisely. The system forces human beings to do the rote work of data alignment, which leaves them absolutely no time or energy for higher order thinking.
That's depressing.
And this dynamic brings us to another critical concept from the manifesto, Principle 3, secrecy and legibility.
Okay, secrecy and legibility.
Whenever you see a system that is this broken, this inefficient, and yet incredibly entrenched, you have to ask a deeply uncomfortable question.
Who benefits?
Exactly. Who benefits? Because the truth remains obscure. What narrative keeps the real bottleneck hidden from the board of directors?
This was the part of the research that genuinely blew my mind. Because the answer to who benefits from this fragmented, brittle, disconnected nightmare is the legacy software vendors themselves.
They do, because in enterprise software, the data ontology, the way the data is structured and stored, is the ultimate control point. The legacy vendors have designed their systems to act as toll booths. Because a company's operational data is trapped inside the vendor's proprietary closed system, a system deliberately lacking open standards and modern flexible APIs, the vendor holds all the leverage.
So if I'm the CIO and I finally want to connect my old ERP to a modern supply chain tool, the vendor says, sure, you can do that, but you have to pay us a massive licensing fee just to access your own data.
Exactly. They charge the enterprise for API access to their own siloed operational data.
That is wild.
But here is the truly brilliant and somewhat insidious part of the current market dynamic. With the explosion of AI hype over the last 2 years, these legacy vendors are under pressure to look innovative.
So what do?
They take that basic API query access, they slap a chatbot interface on top of it, and they rebrand it as an AI functionality module.
No way.
And they charge a premium for it.
It's an extortion racket. You're paying them a massive premium just to buy a module that lets you look at your own historical data slightly faster. And they call it an AI upgrade. But it's not intelligent. It's a feature, not a foundation.
And this is exactly why the Workday article explicitly warns that in a legacy environment, AI will always be an afterthought.
It has to be.
It will be severely limited in scope and fundamentally retrospective. It cannot offer the cross-functional real-time intelligence required for strategic decisions.
Right.
It can't link workforce planning directly to financial forecasts in real time because it fundamentally doesn't possess the architecture to do so.
It just looks backward.
Always.
And this sets us up for a massive structural collision. We've identified the control point, the rigid schema, the linear batch processing, and the vendor toll booth.
Yes.
Now we have to look at what happens when that rigid historical system is forced to interact with the chaotic physical reality of the market today.
We are moving from the digital realm into the physical realm now. And to understand this collision, the manifesto introduces Founder Principle 4, competitive asymmetry.
Competitive asymmetry.
It demands that we ask, what happens to the firms that realize this architecture is broken too late versus the competitors who aggressively bypass these systems early?
Who wins?
Right. Who gains the disproportionate exponential advantage?
To really grasp that competitive asymmetry, we have to unpack a specific, brilliant concept from the Quiet Architect Manifesto called the Law of Physical Parity.
Yes.
I want to spend some real time on this because it feels like the key to unlocking the whole argument. What exactly does the Law of Physical Parity dictate?
The Law of Physical Parity states that a company's digital data topology must match its physical operational topology.
Okay, let's ground that. What does that mean for a company moving physical goods?
It means that if the physical reality of your supply chain is highly dynamic, if it is constantly shifting based on 100 real-time variables, then your digital schema cannot be static.
It has to match.
Exactly. It cannot rely on a batch process that updates once every 24 hours. If your digital map doesn't match the speed and complexity of the physical territory, you will lose to whoever has a better map.
And to make this incredibly concrete, the manifesto gives a phenomenal, visceral, real-world example. The reality of urban logistics in Vardhman Nagpur in India.
Yes, let's paint that picture because it perfectly illustrates the failure of legacy systems.
Yeah, go for it.
Imagine you are a massive consumer goods company trying to scale a fulfillment network through the tight, complex, chaotic arteries of a major Indian logistics hub like Vardhman Nagar.
We are talking about hyperlocal, highly relational supply chain environments.
Totally.
Let's think about the sensory overload of that physical reality. The physical world there moves in milliseconds.
Right.
You have sudden, unpredictable traffic bottlenecks because of a local festival. You have massive, immediate weather changes, like a monsoon downpour flooding a specific route.
It's unpredictable.
Very. You have the variable availability of independent drivers. You have highly nuanced local human relationships that dictate who gets priority at a crowded loading dock. You have sudden shifts in consumer demand block by block.
Exactly.
It's an environment of constant, dynamic, high-stress rerouting.
Now take that chaotic millisecond by millisecond physical reality and try to map it onto the rigid, monolithic, decades-old software schema we've been discussing.
The 1998 Honda Civic.
Exactly. A system that takes all that rich context and summarizes it into a generic, shipping delay code in a general ledger at the end of the day.
Oh, man.
What happens? The system breaks. It cannot comprehend the chaos. It fundamentally lacks the vocabulary to process that environment.
Because the physical world moves in real time, but the digital ledger moves in batches.
Exactly. When you force a dynamic, agentic AI, an AI that is specifically designed to act on real-time data, ingest weather patterns, and make instant routing decisions,
Right.
when you force it to wait for a legacy relational database to update, you aren't optimizing your supply chain.
You're crippling it.
You are simply locking in your bottlenecks. You are paying a premium compute cost to wait in the exact same line you were already in.
Here is where it gets absolutely critical for you listening, especially if you are in operations or strategy.
Pay attention to this part.
Think about the competitive asymmetry here.
Yeah.
What happens to the competitor who recognizes this mismatch?
Right.
They aren't just going out and buying a slightly different brand of legacy software. They are fundamentally changing the rules of engagement in the market.
They're playing a different game.
They are shifting from what the Workday framework calls a system of record to a system of action.
A system of record, as we established, looks backward. It's the meticulous accountant.
Yeah.
But a system of action is built entirely differently. It is built on a unified data foundation where artificial intelligence is not a bolted-on dashboard, but baked into the core architecture from day one.
It's native.
Yes. A system of action anticipates needs. It provides real-time, AI-driven insights that propel immediate physical action. It represents true human-machine collaboration.
Okay, let's put these two systems head-to-head in Wardamanagar.
Let's do it.
Competitor A is using a massive, heavily customized legacy ERP system. Their supply chain manager finds out about a massive traffic delay and flooding on a key route 3 hours after it happens.
Right.
Because that's when the system ran its batch process and updated the dashboard.
Right.
By then, the shipment is stuck, the goods might be ruined, the customer is angry, and the margin on that delivery is entirely wiped out.
Complete failure.
But competitor B is using a system of action. What do they see? How does their architecture behave?
Well, competitor B has an AI-native operating model. They aren't waiting for a batch update.
Okay.
Their system is ingesting real-time edge inputs. Industrial video feeds for the loading docks, sensor data from the trucks, live local weather APIs, and traffic patterns.
And seeing everything.
Instantly. The AI anticipates the delay before the truck even hits the bottleneck.
Yep.
Instantly, in a matter of milliseconds, it calculates a multivariable rerouting protocol. It adjusts the inventory forecast at the destination, calculates the fuel cost of the new route versus the penalty of a late delivery,
In milliseconds.
and prompts the local human operator on their mobile device with the optimal new route.
So the crisis is completely averted before it ever materializes.
Exactly. That is competitive asymmetry. It's not a small advantage. It's an existential gap. The firm that notices this late, the firm still running batch processes, is literally operating in the past.
They are bankrupting themselves on technical debt and lost efficiency, while their competitor is operating in the future, reacting to the market in real time.
Yeah, it's game over.
So the obvious question for any executive or manager listening to this is, how do we escape?
Right.
We know the legacy system is a trap. We know the vendors are acting as toll booths, extracting value without providing intelligence. We know competitors are adapting faster and changing the physics of the market. But we also know that ripping out a decades-old core ERP system is a terrifying, multi-year, multi-hundred-million-dollar nightmare that paralyzes companies.
Nobody wants to do that.
The failure rate of rip-and-replace digital transformations is notoriously high. So how does an enterprise escape the toll booth without completely destroying its current operations in the process?
This is where the strategic thinking shifts from merely analyzing the problem to executing a solution. And the manifesto guides this perfectly by introducing Founder Principle 5, Power Law Relevance.
Power law relevance.
Yes. It directs leaders to ruthlessly rank their ideas by strategic importance to find the highest leverage move possible. And as you noted, the highest leverage move is absolutely not a rip and replace.
No, the operational risk is simply too high.
Right. You don't pull the foundation out from under the house while everyone is sleeping inside.
A house will collapse.
Exactly. Instead of ripping out the foundation, the highest leverage move is what the quiet architect calls bootstrapping solutions.
Okay.
It's designing an architectural bypass.
An architectural bypass. I want to make sure we visualize this perfectly. Mechanically, what does an architectural bypass actually look like in enterprise software?
It looks like an agentic overlay.
Agentic overlay.
Yeah. The strongest operators, the ones who are winning right now, are not trying to fix the old legacy ERP. They have realized it's unfixable.
You can't fix the Honda Civic.
Right. Instead, they are building a unified data and agentic orchestration layer that sits on top of the existing system.
On top of it?
Yes. They are building cloud-native orchestration layers that deploy lightweight, Python-based headless edge AI.
Okay, stop right there. I need you to translate that.
Sure.
Python-based headless edge AI. What makes an AI headless in this context, and why is Python the key here?
Excellent question. Let's break it down. Python is a highly flexible, incredibly fast programming language that is the native tongue of modern machine learning and AI.
Okay.
It allows developers to build small, highly specific AI models quickly. Headless means these AI models do not have a traditional, clunky graphical user interface, a GUI.
So no screen.
Right. They don't have a screen or a dashboard that a human has to log into and click around on. They run invisibly in the background. And edge means the computational processing isn't happening in a massive server farm 3 states away. It's happening right at the edge of the network.
Like where?
On the warehouse floor, on the scanner device, on the truck.
So you have these fast, invisible, localized AI agents managing the real-time physical logistics and making the inference routing decisions in milliseconds.
Exactly. And this introduces the most brilliant tactic in the entire manifesto: API latency arbitrage.
API latency arbitrage. That sounds like high-frequency trading jargon.
It is similar in spirit.
Explain how that works as a bypass.
In finance, latency arbitrage is trading on the microscopic speed differences between market feeds. In enterprise architecture, API latency arbitrage means you build lightweight, low-latency API bridges between your fast physical subsystems, like your warehouse robotics, your fleet telemetry, your edge AI agents, and you connect them to this new agile overlay.
So you skip the old system.
You route all the high-speed, complex decisions through this new layer.
And what happens to the massive, expensive legacy ERP system?
It's the ultimate insult to the legacy system. You relegate the monolithic ERP to act purely as a dumb storage drive or a dumb ledger.
This is incredible. Let me give you an analogy to see if I have the mechanics of this right.
Go ahead.
It's literally like a cardiovascular bypass surgery.
Yes.
When a patient has a severely clogged artery, the legacy ERP, the surgeon doesn't rip the old artery out of the body. That would be too traumatic.
Exactly.
Instead, they take a new, clean vein, the agentic overlay, and they stitch it right over the blockage. The lifeblood of the business, the real-time data, and the high-speed decision-making now flows entirely through the new high-speed route. The old clogged artery just sits there. It provides structural support, but it's no longer the critical path.
That is a perfect mechanical analogy. The blood flows through the bypass, the daily high-stress operations flow through the AI overlay,
And then
at the end of the day, week or quarter, the new high-speed system simply sends a finalized, summarized receipt down to the old ERP so that the accountants and the compliance officers have their historical record.
wow.
The legacy system becomes nothing but a digital filing cabinet.
You completely strip the legacy vendor of their power. You bypass their toll booth entirely.
Yes.
They can't charge you for access to the intelligence
Right.
because you move the intelligence out of their house.
You isolate the control point. The manifesto states this plainly. As a cardinal rule of modern architecture, he who owns the real-time inference routing owns the operation.
That's a great line.
Do not, under any circumstances, let legacy vendors control the action layer of your business. You trade on the speed difference. The AI makes the decision at the edge in milliseconds, executes the physical move, and doesn't wait for the relational database to wake up. You stop starving your AI. You feed it the rich, unstructured, real-time context it needs natively.
Okay, this is brilliant architectural strategy. It makes total sense on a whiteboard.
Sure.
But let's bring it all the way down to the ground. How does someone listening to this right now, maybe a mid-level, functional team leader, a VP of supply chain, or a curious engineer who knows their company's tech is broken, how do they prove this dynamic is actually happening in their own company this week?
They need proof.
Right. How do they get the board's attention without just complaining?
We apply the final lens from the manifesto. Founder Principle 6, actionable validation.
Actionable validation.
The manifesto demands that we ask,
Yeah.
how would a serious, rigorous operator test this thesis cheaply? What validation signal would prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the legacy architecture is strangling the company?
And what's the test?
To answer that, it provides a brilliant, ruthless test. We can call it the 48-hour validation experiment.
Let's lay out the precise blueprint for this experiment, because this is something you listening could literally initiate tomorrow morning with your team.
The manifesto originally frames a version of this as a 30-day test, but we can adapt the core mechanics for a localized functional team to get undeniable data in just 48 hours.
Okay, what do they do?
Here is the exact design of the experiment. You isolate a small, contained workflow. You task a single AI agent, perhaps a simple Python script connected to a routing API, with executing a multivariable supply chain rerouting protocol.
Something complex but contained. Like, we have a simulated disruption. Reroute these 5 specific shipments from Nagpur to Mumbai because of a sudden weather event, and simultaneously recalculate the margin impact based on real-time fuel prices.
Exactly. You give the AI the parameters and let it calculate the optimal path. That calculation will take milliseconds.
Right.
But then you measure the exact delay caused by waiting for the batch data updates from your legacy relational database to clear the action. You map the latency.
You are measuring the friction itself.
You track the milliseconds, the seconds, the hours it takes from the moment the physical reality changed, like the weather event, to the moment the AI calculated the solution, to the moment the legacy system actually allowed the optimal response to be executed.
Think about your own company right now as you listen to this. What happens when your AI model realizes a critical decision needs to be made in milliseconds, but your core database takes 6 hours to reflect the reality of the inventory?
That exact measurement of delay, that documented latency, is the thesis proven in hard numbers.
It's a math problem.
Yes, that latency is your exact exposure to operational risk. As the manifesto powerfully states, that delta, the time gap between reality shifting and the database updating, is where your competitive advantage goes to die.
It makes the invisible visible. The overarching problem with technical debt is that it's invisible to the CEO and the board.
They just see a budget line item.
It just looks like IT expenses. But a latency metric, a chart, showing the board that our new multi-million-dollar AI is forced to sit idle for 6 hours while our competitor moves instantly, that is terrifying. It's undeniable.
It forces visibility, which destroys the respectability illusion.
Right.
It forces the executives to look at their comfortable narrative, we are investing heavily in AI, and confront the brutal truth. We are paying an absolute premium for our AI to wait in a slow-moving line.
Once you visualize that specific delay, you can never unsee it.
Never.
It creates an enormous sense of urgency that forces the organization to stop buying useless, incremental AI modules from the legacy vendors and start actually building the architectural bypass.
It's the ultimate reality check.
We have covered some massive, highly technical ground today. We've talked about data schemas, latency arbitrage, legacy toll booths, and Python-based edge AI.
A lot of architecture.
But before we wrap up, we need to step back. We need to look at the human cost of these systems.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the most surprising and, frankly, beautiful part of the Quiet Architect Manifesto is that it doesn't end with code. It ends with a deeply personal foundation.
And this raises what is perhaps the most important question of this entire deep dive. Why does this architectural failure matter on a human level?
Right.
Why should we care beyond just the profit margins of Fortune 500 companies? The manifesto anchors its entire philosophy in a visceral story from the author's past, working on a factory floor.
Let's share that story because it recontextualizes everything we've discussed today. The author, the Quiet Architect, was working early in their career building automated robotic cells.
Yes.
Specifically, they were integrating these Techman cobots, which are these highly advanced 6-axis collaborative robots with built-in AI and vision systems.
Really impressive hardware.
But they weren't just using these robots to sort cardboard boxes. They were building these automated cells for factory workers who were handling active explosives.
They were handling grenades.
The author writes about that environment so vividly. They describe watching the human operators handle these explosives on the line and how they did it as if they were collectively holding their breath.
The tension must have been unbelievable.
Right. The tension, the cognitive load, the sheer fear of making a mistake was an absolute physical weight in the room. And the author integrated the robotic process to take over the physical handling of the explosives.
To take the human out of danger.
Yes. They didn't do it for corporate innovation. They didn't do it to generate a press release about AI. They did it out of a profound fear for human safety.
And the line from that section that just hits so incredibly hard is about how we measure return on investment.
ROI.
The business, of course, celebrated the new efficiency, the throughput, the financial savings.
Because that's what businesses do.
Right. But the author says the only metric that actually mattered, the only true ROI, was the message an operator sent home at the end of the shift. I'm safe tonight.
I'm safe tonight. That specific moment on the factory floor forged a permanent guiding philosophy for the author, which they call restorative engineering.
Restorative engineering.
The core belief of restorative engineering is that real technology, when applied correctly and ethically, does not merely replace human effort. It does not exist merely to reduce headcount.
No.
It exists to restore human safety, human dignity, and human cognitive bandwidth.
I really want everyone listening to pause and internalize that phrase, because how often is AI pitched in the media or even in our own companies purely as a tool to cut jobs?
All the time.
To replace the human element entirely?
Almost constantly. The prevailing narrative is one of extraction and replacement.
Yes.
But if we connect this philosophy of restorative engineering back to everything we've discussed today, back to the overwhelmed CIO or the frustrated finance analyst or the supply chain manager pulling their hair out over brittle integrations, we see a different kind of risk.
It's not physical explosives, thankfully.
No.
But as the author points out, it is the risk of systemic collapse masked by green dashboards.
Think about the Workday article's point on the massive decrease in human productivity and the abysmal user experience of legacy systems.
It's soul-crushing work.
Finance teams are consistently asked by leadership to do more with less. They are trapped in that spreadsheet shadow IT we talked about, spending hours a day manually reconciling stale data just to keep the business afloat.
Yep.
They are mentally holding their breath, waiting for the brittle integration to break, waiting for the system to crash during month-end close.
When the technology traps the user in endless rote reconciliation, when it forces a supply chain manager to manually untangle a logistical nightmare in Wordamanagar because the multi-million-dollar AI system is starved of context, the technology is fundamentally failing the human.
It's actively harming them.
It is extracting their bandwidth. It is destroying their cognitive safety and burning them out.
So the architectural bypass, the agentic overlay we spent so much time discussing, it's not just about competitive asymmetry.
No.
It's not just about beating the competitor to the market. It is profoundly about unburdening the humans trapped inside these failing legacy systems.
Precisely. We must challenge ourselves and our organizations to view AI not as a mechanism for headcount reduction, but as a restorative mechanism.
I love that.
By letting the AI handle the high-speed, high-stress, multivariable rerouting decisions, the tasks that machines are natively good at, you restore the human operator's bandwidth.
Right.
You give them their time and their sanity back. You free them to do the deep, strategic, empathetic, and creative work that a machine fundamentally cannot do.
You restore their dignity?
You restore their dignity in the workplace. You move the technology from being a constant source of friction to being a true enabler.
That is profound. It completely shifts the entire paradigm of how we should evaluate enterprise software. If the software doesn't restore the user's capability, if it doesn't give them their bandwidth back, then it is a broken system, no matter how many flashy AI features the vendor bolts onto the dashboard. Okay, let's bring this all together. We have covered massive complex ground today.
We really have.
We started by looking at the visible symptom of the crisis. The overwhelmed CIO, drowning in technical debt and upgrade paralysis, pressured by the board to show AI progress, but structurally unable to do so without breaking the company.
Right.
We located the hidden intelligence vacuum, the rigid relational database schemas, and linear batch processing that deliberately strip away operational context and trap critical data in silos.
We identified the hidden incentive structure keeping the system in place. The legacy software vendors acting as literal toll booths, charging enterprises a premium to access their own data, and rebranding basic queries as AI.
Extortion.
And then we examined the violent collision of the static digital ledger with the dynamic, chaotic, millisecond reality of physical logistics, proving the law of physical parity.
And most importantly, we explored the escape route. We mapped the architectural bypass, the strategic refusal to attempt a catastrophic rip and replace, but instead building an agentic overlay, a true system of action driven by headless edge AI that relegates the legacy ERP to its proper place as a dumb storage drive.
Yes.
We gave you the blueprint for the 48-hour experiment to measure the latency risk and prove the thesis in your own company. And we anchored all of this technical architecture in the human philosophy of restorative engineering.
The essential understanding that true technological advancement must prioritize the restoration of human bandwidth and cognitive safety over mere procedural optimization.
So whether you are prepping for a massive vendor negotiation tomorrow, leading an IT infrastructure team, or you're just insanely curious about why corporate tech always feels so broken despite the billions spent on it, you now have the structural blueprint.
You know what to look for.
You know how to spot the fake AI integration that just bolts onto the past. You know how to locate the real control point holding your company back. We started this deep dive talking about the murkiness of a diagnostic landscape, comparing the clean, visible fracture of an X-ray to the muddy, deceptive waters of enterprise tech.
Right.
But hopefully the water is a lot clearer for you now. The fracture isn't in the new AI models. The fracture is deep within the analog foundation it's sitting on.
The diagnosis is completely clear. The core question now is whether organizations and the leaders within them have the courage to apply the cure.
Yeah.
Will they build the bypass, or will they just keep buying incredibly expensive bandages from the legacy vendors?
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over as you go back to work, or as you look at your own business. We talked a lot about the latency delta, that critical, measurable gap between reality shifting and the database finally updating. Look closely at your own workflow tomorrow. Look at the specific tools you are forced to use, the reports you are asked to generate, the decisions you are expected to make. Are you truly operating in real time?
Or are you waiting?
Or are you just waiting for the batch to process? Who holds the control point in your daily life, and how can you build a bypass? Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you on the next one.